Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a brand new and surprisingly cram-packed episode of the Metal Meltdown. Today we're talking about all the albums I missed in November 2021, which was way fucking busier than it really should have been, to the point where I don't really have much time to spare. So let's not do that. Let's not waste time. Let's not fuck around. Let's just get right into it. Here are all the albums that I missed in November 2021. First up, we have the self-titled debut album from Sion, featuring Howard Jones of Killswitch Engage fame and YouTuber Jared Dines. A lot of people were asking me about this record over the course of this weekend, a lot of people saying that they really liked it and they were hoping I would talk about it, and I decided that I didn't want to because I don't have much to say because it's extremely fucking boring. Some of the most generic and repetitive metalcore lyrics and riffs and vocals I've heard in a long time. I barely even finished this record. One of the most boring things I listened to all year. If you love it, I'm happy for you. Good for you. Please continue to enjoy it. But also please stop pestering me about this because holy shit, this thing was so fucking lame. Potentially hot take, but I don't think we'd even be talking about this band if it didn't feature Howard Jones and Jared Dines. If this was a no-name metalcore band, y'all would have completely dismissed it. I don't think anyone would even be aware that it fucking exists. So, yeah. Okay. Moving on, hopefully to something more exciting. What are we talking about next here? Oh, the self-titled album for For My Valentine. Ditto. Yeah, honestly, take everything I said about Sion and just apply it to this. I've never been a big fan of For My Valentine. This album did not fucking change my mind at all. Next up, we have Doom Crew Inc. from Black Label Society, another album that a lot of people just kind of expected I would talk about. I don't really have much to say about this album either, though. It's a very lethargic and derivative record. Kind of feels like Black Label Society is going through the motions on this thing. Like, there's just nothing really all that exciting or new or fresh here. It doesn't even feel all that well polished or performed in comparison to previous records. Yeah, just a really lame, generic, predictable kind of dad rock record. It's almost sad that somebody as enthusiastic and so full of life and energy as Zakk Wylde is putting out something so plain and so just boring, but whatever. What are you gonna do? Stick it in your dad's stocking for Christmas. Maybe he'll love it. I don't. Let's move on. Next up, we have the debut EP from American nu metal revival band Vended, featuring Griffin Taylor and Simon Crahan, the sons of Corey Taylor and Sean Crahan of Slipknot fame. With that particular thought in mind, it should not be especially shocking to hear that Vended is essentially Slipknot 2.0. Straight up. There's a lot on this EP that straight up feels like it could have been ripped from the debut album or Iowa. It's a lot of pummeling grooves and a lot of shouted, abrasive, yelled vocals. I don't know, it's not really my cup of tea. It does feel somewhat derivative in that sense, but hey, honestly, at the same time, I did dig it more than the recent Slipknot single, so do with that information whatever you wish. Who knows? If you love old school Slipknot, maybe this will do it for you. Didn't do it for me, maybe it'll do it for you. I don't fucking know. I also don't fucking care. Can we finally talk about something a little bit more interesting? Holy shit. Next up, we have Worship from Hypocrisy, Swedish death metal underdogs coming back with their first album in 8 years. I had intended to review this, to be honest, but I ended up choosing to review Lockup, which might have been a mistake because nobody fucking tuned into that review. C'est la vie, though. What's done is done. At least we get to talk about it here, and I'm happy we get to do so because this is a pretty fun record. It's not the most inventive. One could argue that it is a very meat and potatoes kind of Swedish death metal record, but, you know, I really like Swedish death metal. I love At the Gates and In Flames, Arch Enemy, Soilwork, Grave, Entombed. That shit's fun. And this record's fucking fun. Like, the way I see it, Swedish death metal is a lot like fast food pizza or a Batman video game. Even when it's bad, or at least not up to par, it's still kind of good. So fuck it. Eat up, open your wallet, jam some fucking Swedish death metal. It's not going to change the world, but it doesn't need to, it doesn't want to, doesn't have to. Just have fun. It's new Hypocrisy. What more do you need to know? Next up, we have The Everlasting Plague from Pathology, another album that people just kind of expected that I would talk about. There's quite a few of those this month. And I don't really have much to say, not so because it's boring or derivative, but because Pathology occupy a territory very similar to that of Cannibal Corpse, or the Black Dahlia Murder, or Aborted. They've been around for a long time, they have a very specific style, they have never strayed from it, and nobody has ever asked them to because, quite frankly, they're still pretty fucking good at what they do. Tons of gnarly riffs and guitar solos and breakdowns and nasty fucking gutturals. It's abrasive, the production is very slick, the album itself is quite tight, wrapping up at about 41 minutes, never really wasting any time. There's no fat, there's no filler. It could prove to be a somewhat boring and repetitive listen for people that aren't really into Pathology's particular brand of extreme metal. I totally understand that, but much like Hypocrisy, I'm not really sure I care. It was just fun. It was just fucking fun. Have some fun, goddammit. Just have fun. Next up, we have No Sign of Life from Unleashed. I've never really spent much time with this band beforehand. I might have to change that following the release of this record, because there are some tasty fucking tunes on here. Lots of rambunctious riffs, in-your-face vocals, got kind of a black death metal fusion thing going on with a Viking metal kind of aesthetic, a lot of Viking imagery and lyrics and shit like that. The production, in my opinion, could be just a little bit beefier. Something about the guitar and the percussion just feels kind of thin, kind of lanky. I don't know how to describe it, but it just feels like something is missing there. But hey, plenty of ripping tunes here, to the point where I'm kind of curious to check out more Unleashed stuff, assuming it's as gnarly as this. I enjoyed this record quite a bit. Next up, we have Origin from Omnium Gatherum, long-running Finnish melodic death metal band. I've kind of been back and forth on this band over the years. They've released stuff that I like, they've released stuff that I don't like. Unfortunately, this album kind of falls into the latter category. It just doesn't really have much life or soul to it. It feels like Omnium Gatherum is just kind of going through the motions. It feels like they're making this out of obligation. Everything is pretty, but there's no substance to any of it, you know? It's like looking at a beautiful wedding cake and then discovering that it's like 90% icing. It's especially disappointing since I've enjoyed the last two Omnium Gatherum records, but this just really did not do a fucking thing for me. Honest to God, when I tried to talk about it for an album review, I got bored halfway through the recording and shut it the fuck off and talked about the Portrayal of Guild record instead. Next up, we have the Humming Mountain, a brand new EP from Gaahls WYRD. I don't actually know how to fucking pronounce the name of this fucking band. It features Gahl, infamous gay black metal icon himself. It's very weird, very chill, very flexible and diverse. It's melancholic and evil at the same time. A lot of classic black metal flavors, but a lot of weird hooks and melodies, and a lot of chill, atmospheric, almost kind of folk rock sections and vibes, not too dissimilar from like a kind of like some Sion solo material, or even Panopticon with some of the folksy guitar work. It's surprisingly pretty dense by the standards of an EP. Definitely occupies a territory more similar to that of Pleiades Dust from Gorguts, where it's like, this could easily pass for a fucking album if I was told otherwise. But that's not really a bad thing. In the case of the Humming Mountains, it means you're getting more bang for your buck, which is a good thing, ultimately. And hopefully it means that the next full-blown studio album will be one hell of a mystical, experimental, yet classic black metal roller coaster. Next up, we have Death, Madness, Horror, Decay from The Lurking Fear, featuring Thomas Limberg of At the Gates fame, who I guess is really fucking busy this year, because on top of having recorded an album with At the Gates, he also just recorded an album with Lockup, which we literally just fucking reviewed. Good for you, Thomas. Get that fucking money. Keep up the hard work, bud. Much like the aforementioned Hypocrisy, the Lurking Fear, just kind of pumping out some nasty, old-school Swedish death metal brutality, and also much like Hypocrisy, I don't really care, because as you already know, I love Swedish death metal, and I love At the Gates, and coincidentally, this is very much in the vein of those early At the Gates records. It's very primitive, very abrasive, there are some melodic hooks and choruses, duh, but not to the extent of Slaughter of the Soul or a more recent At the Gates project like The Nightmare of Being. If for whatever reason you're vying for At the Gates to return to a more traditional kind of death metal sound, I think you will thoroughly enjoy this record. Next up, we have Preserved in Torment, playing some super gross, gnarly, underground death doom, very raw, very primitive, very dark, a lot of people loving this. I, unfortunately, am not one of those people. I don't hate it by any stretch. I was actually enjoying the first few songs, and overall I'm impressed by the production and the scope of this thing, but the music is just a little bit too repetitive, the vocals just a little bit too intelligible. Eventually everything just blurs together in a sea of sewage and doom and gloom. Some people love that, some people want only that, and more fucking power to ya. Personally, I'm looking for something with just a little bit more oomph and clarity, you know? Like the Worm record, or even the Dream Unending record that just came out that everybody is gushing about. And speaking of Dream Unending, let's actually talk about that, the debut album, Tide Turns Eternal, featuring Derek Vella of Tomb Mold fame. Finally, some fucking Canadian shit here, hell yes! Dream Unending have perfectly recaptured the glory days of like early to mid 90s death doom, like old school Anathema, My Dying Bride, just the tiniest dash of Paradise Lost. It's very murky, but very evocative as well. There's a lot of agony and misery being channeled through the music, and it is thoroughly engrossing and immersive and captivating as a result. In my opinion, not an album of the year contender, as many have implied, but a thoroughly strong slice of old school death doom nonetheless. I almost reviewed this. Had I done so, I would have given this a very enthusiastic 4 out of 5. Next up, we have Slave to the Scalpel, the debut album from 200 Stab Wounds. This band, in a remarkably small amount of time, has turned a lot of heads. This album was streaming in advance on Revolver magazine. They did a big tour of Sanguisugabogg, another big name in brutal death metal right now. They also somehow pissed off Chris Barnes. I don't really know what that's all about, but hey, anyone who pisses off Chris fucking Barnes is automatically pretty cool in my book. So with that in mind, I was actually kind of excited to check out Slave to the Scalpel. And while I did enjoy it for the most part, I would argue that it is just a touch overhyped. I mean, some of y'all are acting as if this is literally the greatest fucking death metal record ever fucking made. Much like the Tortured Whole record from the aforementioned Sanguisugabogg. And I think y'all need to calm the fuck down in that regard. But credit where it's due, riffs are gnarly, production is gnarly, it's beefy, it's evil, it's heavy, and I'm pretty sure that's all y'all want from this fucking genre. I don't blame ya. It's not my favorite record, but I did still enjoy it. And I do look forward to seeing what this band does in the future, because if they're turning heads now on a debut, then I can't wait to see what they'll do down the line with a bigger budget and perhaps just a little bit more creativity. 200 Stab Wounds, if y'all are watching, I'm gonna keep a close eye on y'all. Very close eye. Remember this name, remember this face. You will see it and hear it again in the future. Next up, we have Divine Comedy Inferno, brand new album from Bestial Invasion. Couple of people have recommended me this album. I'm really happy they did, because this is one of the best thrash metal records of 2021. A blistering high-concept slab of progressive, technical, melodic thrash metal with soaring vocals and killer guitar work. I love the concept itself, which deals with Dante's descent into hell, level by level. It's Honestly, kind of brilliant. I'm shocked more metal bands haven't made albums about Dante's Inferno and all that shit. I mean, maybe there's tons, but nothing immediately comes to mind. Whatever. Point is, Bestial Invasion, holy shit, just what I needed following the incredibly generic Exodus record. I don't care how many of y'all I piss off with that statement. Persona non grata was fine. Y'all need to chill the fuck out. Like, anybody saying that Persona non grata is the best thrash record of 2021 needs to check this shit out immediately. Or the Cryptosis record. Or the Vulture record. Or the Necromantheon record. You know what? It was actually a really good year for thrash. Go check out all the bands I just mentioned. But also, especially Bestial Invasion, because that's the record we're actually talking about right now. Check it out. It's fucking rad. I dig it. Next up, we have Tales of Othertime from Stormkeep. People are going apeshit over this record. I've gotten more requests to review this record than I did for Sion, Black Label Society, Omnium, Gatherum, all that fucking shit. You are clearly in love with this album, and I'm so happy for you. But, unfortunately, I'm just yanking your fucking chain. This record fucking slaps. Badass, nasty, melodic black metal with dungeon synth vibes, very much in the vein of Dissection and Emperor. It's epic, it's cold, it's brutal, it's everything I want from an album of this type and variety. What a fantastic fucking record. Maybe one of the best black metal records of the year, which I know is a bold statement, because I've kind of said it a few times. I'll be the first to admit I'm a touch hyperbolic in that regard, and especially because there's been so much good black metal this year. 2021, easily the year of black metal. But this, holy shit, so good. It's so great. Honestly, if I'd reviewed it, it might have been a 4 out of 5, might even have been a 4.5 out of 5. It's probably not going to end up on my top 10, because quite frankly, I've already put it together. But it is a fucking fantastic record, and you should definitely check it out regardless of that. One more album that I wanted to talk about, didn't get the chance to because I kind of forgot about it, and now because of that I'm standing outside in the cold, is the sophomore studio album from a black gaze post-metal band called Mole, or maybe Maul. The album's called Diorama, very reminiscent, eerily so, of like Sunbather era Death Heaven, and even stuff that came before that. A lot of nasty vocals, a lot of evocative, minimalistic soundscapes contrasted with very colorful vocal and keyboard and guitar harmonies and patterns. It's immersive. It's a touch derivative, one could say, of the aforementioned Death Heaven, but I personally really like Death Heaven and black gaze in general, so I'm not personally bothered by that. In fact, I think if you're looking for a version of Death Heaven that is objectively more metal, this would probably suffice. And that is it. Oh my fucking god. November was way busier than it should have been. What the fuck? So many goddamn records. It's as if every band on the planet knew that people like me were working on their top 10 and they said, ah, fuck, we gotta squeeze them in right real fucking quick. Yo, check us out, asshole. And it's great, but oh my god, slow down. What the hell? I'm only one fucking guy. Let me know if there are any other albums you feel that I missed in the month of November 2021. I don't really feel there is, but feel free to prove me wrong. Stay tuned, because list month begins right the fuck now. The best metal albums of the year. The worst metal albums of the year, the best non-metal albums of the year. So with that in mind, press this button right here to subscribe to the channel if you somehow aren't already, so you get updates on all of this fucking nonsense, including much more nonsensey fucking immediately. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.